Dale Wills here with another edition of Doc Talk for In the Bite. And today I've got the pleasure of speaking with Brendan Zimba and his brother Preston of Coastal Rigging. And today we're going to go over some great tips on how to keep your outriggers tuned, maintenance items, and just how to do some preventive maintenance and what to look for.
We just want to kind of check out the items that we see issues with, items that take a lot of the stress. And starting down here at the base, we have our main base toggle and our base butt end. So we just want to make sure that these ears haven't flared out any. And at this toggle, we'll take this out and we'll inspect both holes to make sure that they haven't wallowed themselves out. Just over time, the rigger gets a bow downward from, just gravity and the pressure of the lines pulling on it. And if we spin it, you might actually be able to see that tip there. It's not dead centered right now. It's looping around basically. The spreaders are intentionally offset of each other. And what I mean by that is that the first spreader you can see and the last spreader should be lined up with each other, and the middle one on a triple spreader will be offset to one side. We want to make sure that that offset is always in the rigger. Sometimes over time, the offset becomes less because the holes get wallowed out and we have to, re-drill these pipes. So we're looking for about a 1/2 to a 1/4 inch of gap of airspace between these cables to keep them from rubbing each other. When they do, they just eat right through each other very quickly and start fraying and all that stuff that you see. If you see rust marks on your outriggers while they're on your boat, odds are it's because these are touching right here at this point. So we'll want to handle that, and then we'll just go through and make sure none of the cables are rubbing, and we won't have to alter any of that part of the outrigger. Now, even if your outrigger is offset properly, lots of times, mates or captains or whoever you can find to do work on your boat, if you have to replace one of these cables, when they put this cable back on, as you can see, this one wasn't rubbing before, but they'll come and replace a broken cable, and if it's just put on the wrong side with the bend of the spreader, you can actually see now this one right here is rubbing versus the ones that are set properly. After we inspect the outriggers, take these cables off and kind of just see where they were tension-wise, and you can kind of tell when you put the spreaders even with the horizon and then pull out with your finger how much tension's on these. And different riggers take different tensions, even changing from spreader to spreader along the rigger, and we'll show you that as we go. Right now I can see with finger tension, this is probably about a 4-inch space right here. We want to be more at about 2 inches versus where it is finger tight now. So after we repair this, we should be right here. These spreaders here, a lot of times become loose and they have a little bit of wobble to them, so go ahead and check for that. Most likely, this stud that holds the spreader on has just loosened a little bit and needs to be retightened to get rid of any play. If there's play, it'll allow the cables to rub each other and wear through. Here's one of the things I was talking about, and I don't know if you can see the small amount of wobble in that. Doesn't seem like much, but once you get out to the end of your spreader, this 1/16 of an inch that this is wobbling becomes a 1/2 inch up here, and then we'll allow those cables to cause each other issues. We'll tighten all these back down, and as you can see, there's no play in this anymore. So what we'll do now is we'll just take this rigger, we got all the cables, we have all the spreaders off, and we'll go ahead and pull all these sections apart real quick. You're either gonna have eye bolts in between here, or you'll have the Rupp pulleys that are built in to the outrigger, and all it'll take is a 7/16 wrench or a 3/16 Allen wrench to get either one off. But as soon as you take off this piece, all your sections should, as long as they're not corroded together, literally just slide apart like such. And we can take these apart, and what we want to do is just go ahead and clean this off and get some fresh silicone grease on these. again, so they're always maintainable, they're always repairable in the future. We have a big problem with, I've had a lot of riggers that are beautiful, they're great condition outriggers, and one section of them becomes damaged or bent, and we've literally had to replace the whole outrigger just because they're corroded together and there's no way to get them apart. We like to take them apart and do this, you know, every 2 years. When we put the riggers back together, this has been our favorite product for keeping them from corroding together. Super Lube. It's a multi-purpose synthetic grease with silicone base. Lasts quite a while and works well. Of course, good old Insulator 845 wax. No abrasives in it. Works nicely on the outriggers, and we found that this Turtle Wax chrome polish is extremely cheap. I think $3 or $4 for the bottle, and it works very well on the aluminum and on all the stainless, and it removes rust from the cables. This or anything really, this is a very mild abrasive, but when you get into the Insulator metal wax with the orange color, it's so rough that it will actually eat through a coating, or if you use it too much on outriggers, or outriggers with a lot of anodizing still left on them, it'll eventually tear through the anodizing. So you want to stick with the mildest product you can to get a good result. When you're putting the grease back on, make sure that you grease not only the inside and outside of the pipe that you're putting on, but then you do the pipe and coat it completely that you're going to shove inside of the other to make sure you get, you know, good grease coverage and least area for corrosion as possible. Since it's the easiest, we have all the cables off and whatnot. Now we'll take our time, you know, to polish and wax these riggers. That way we get into all these nooks and crannies that never get any attention. And it's just easier without the cables in the way. And with this first cable, all I'm looking for is to be, you know, in the general area of where I want to start. And, you know, this just finger tight out with your spreaders with the horizon is about what I'm looking for on a base cable of a set of triple spreaders. Now that we got our first cable on this lower section set to that distance we're looking to start at, what I'll do is set the other cables to exactly that tension. And what I'm doing how I do that is I'll line up with the one I've previously set. And as you can see, this is a little bit longer, and we'll just go ahead and adjust this so these are both the exact same, you know, length of threads by lining these up. Now we're putting on our last cable here on this section, and basically what I'm looking for is that I started off at my right point after lining up all the turnbuckles, and I'm looking for that about finger tight of the 1/2 inch measurement that I started with. And as you can see, we're there. So now I'm going to look at these, and you know, I'm measuring what we showed before. I'm measuring probably about 3/4 of an inch, and what I was aiming for with that first one was more of a 1/2 inch. So what I'll do now is go around, and just because I want to lose a 1/4 inch of tension on all these, I'll take 2 half turns off of each turnbuckle. You know, if we eyesight down this rigger, we're able to tell that this middle spreader here is slightly cocked off to this direction. It's something we checked for when we initially looked over the outrigger, and the whole point of that is so that this cable right here will pass by without rubbing. On this next section up here, we're looking for just that same distance we were measuring before when the spreaders are with the horizon, and then we just take this and lightly finger tight it, pull it to finger tight. We're looking of that distance for about 1 inch to 1.25 inches right here. And that's just kind of how I set my tension, since we don't have cable scales. And it works out very well, and you can do it anywhere, no tools required. Here is one of the very important things while tensioning, tightening, or adjusting your cables. Is we have a lot of cables that when we pull them off, they spin. They're spooled up either tighter or to loosen the cable, and what it does is it messes with the tension and puts a lot of stress on these cables, and you'll never get the proper tension. And so the proper way to do this is to hold the turnbuckle on the cable still, and then adjust the turnbuckle portion that goes into the rigger, so you're not loosening or you're not putting any spin into that cable. We just put our last cable on, and we got our tension set to the beginning point of where we wanted, and we showed you how to do that. And we're just going to come down here now and check our rigger out and see how we look as far as straight. And this rigger actually looks very straight. As you can tell when we spin it, it's like an arrow. There's no wobble to it, and we got this rigger was actually pretty easy. Basically what we're looking for is, let's go ahead and say this cable was too tight right here, and we have this little bow. To fix that, what you want to do is you want to loosen this cable a half a turn, but we don't want to lose our tensions that we had measured before of that 1/2 inch. So when we loosen this a half turn, we'll tighten the opposing cable a half turn. That way we get our bend out, and we've kept our tensions the same on both cables. And that's about it as far as fixing the rigger.